Hey everyone, it's Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness, and I'm so excited to be back again. First time on a Monday, still getting used to all the buttons and things. So if you see my eyeballs going everywhere, that's why. I'm still getting used to this whole new setup. So I love it. I'm so happy to be part of the E360 family. And I'm excited to have a good friend of mine here today. His name is James, and he is the founder of Serene Waters Adventure Therapy, or you could call it SWAT for short, which is kind of fun. Anyway, I'm just going to get started and let's see what we got going with James. Hold on just a moment.
3, 2, 1, 0.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so I think I jinxed myself. So I accidentally played the wrong one in the very beginning, but that's okay because it was still all about me, the most important person in the world. Just kidding. Anyway, without further ado, I would love to introduce my friend James and get this conversation started. Hey, James, how are you?
Hey, Julianne, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Not everybody knows this, but James and I actually used to work together. And also, we've been friends for years now. So I've known James for quite a bit of the last few years of his life and seen him grow exponentially, not only personally, but professionally. And he has got a lot of wisdom to share with us today. So without further ado, I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit about you, how you became you, James.
Well, how I became me. First, I was born, I think just like everybody else, but seriously though, but just to kind of go with the flow here, how long do I have? Because that's a long story. I just want to make sure I'm
just the important things that you want to share, and however long it goes is however long it goes.
All right. Awesome. Well, I grew up, going back and forth between both of my parents' house. My mom and dad had me at a very young age. So my mom lived in Palm Springs, and when I was about 7, my dad moved to LA County, which is like a whole nother world. So I would go to my dad's house, and he grew up in the military, or my grandpa was in the military. So my dad and my uncle moved around every 3 years. And so at some point in their life, they lived in Hawaii, and that's where they learned to surf. And so, I was fortunate enough to get that passed on to me. And so the ocean was always a part of my life at a young age, and just going back and forth, and just going through a lot of trials and tribulations. When I hit my adolescent years, or my teen years, I guess you could say, it was pretty awful, and I'm sure if there's any parents watching or anyone reflecting on their own life, they can probably nod their head. And so for me, what happened is I started turning to substances and alcohol, and running away from home, and took several trips to juvenile hall. And, it was like something I never really had any motivation to want to change or do anything different. And, my uncle, who had a big influence on my life as well, when I was moving around from place to place, in family members' house to family members' house, he would make a point to pick me up and take me surfing, and, showed me some different, self-help groups and things like that. And, of course, I just wasn't ready. When you first get there, you're not entirely ready to just go all in on it. But that definitely planted the seed for me. And just in a nutshell, when I was ready to, seek help and change my life, I was able to do that through various self-help programs and other people mentoring me. And, that kind of led me back to the ocean and what I'm doing now for work. And I became a counselor and because I wanted to further my education and have a career. And I thought, helping people is a great way to do that. And, after a couple of years of doing it, I enjoyed working with people and helping them. But then I was like looking for something different and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got a phone call from one of my good friends, Joey, and he's like, hey, we need a counselor to come run surf therapy over at this treatment center. I was just like, what? You want me to come do what? Yeah, sure. You want to pay me to do that too? I do that stuff for free. So that kind of started my journey in the, substance abuse field, or I guess didn't start it, but solidified it. And that's when I figured out what I wanted to do. And the longer I did that just became clearer and clearer that that's where I needed to be. So I made that shift. But a big part of my life too, aside from the recovery and the ocean stuff and helping others, it's been in my relationship with my daughter. I also had a daughter at a very young age and she's 12 now. And just kind of trying to figure all that out and navigate it and being a parent, it's been a real exciting thing. So, a big shout out to Lauren and also my girlfriend, Samantha, who's really supportive. I have like a dog farm practically now. I live in a two-bedroom apartment and she's a dog lover. So we have 3 dogs. So, life has just kind of happened and it's continued to unfold and bless me. And, we're able to help people and, grow together and, provide that service to people, which were even on my bad days, everyone has them. Work is work, but sometimes it's like you're just having one of those off days, and then when you leave and you see how excited some people are, you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's not about me as much as I want to make it about me. So
I love that. There's a saying that I'm gonna G-rate it, is that every job has a crap sandwich and you have to decide which crap sandwich you want to eat. So, that's true. There's always going to be a downside or a not so pleasant day and that sort of thing. But it's very rewarding when you're able to help people. And I know that you and I both worked, for those watching that don't know, you and I worked together at the same treatment center for a while. And, that was tough. And there was days where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it was just like, I wanted to pull my hair out or whatever. And then I'd get a thank you note or a call from somebody saying, I really wish, I couldn't stand it when you were waking me up in the morning, but I wish you were here now, or just something that just like, oh yeah, that's right. It's not about me. So I love that you talk about that. Is that one of the ways that you stay grateful in your own life, just in general, or?
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like I made that comment about, sometimes as much as I want to make it about me, it's not about me. And I forget how I'm impacting people's lives. And what you shared is like, maybe sometimes like, I work with drug and alcohol treatment centers, mental health facilities. Sometimes like it can be hard to provide the structure and stability for them that they need. And sometimes you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle and you wonder, is this even helping anybody? What am I doing? You're like start having this existential crisis. And then, like I'm out on a Sunday for pizza with my family and I see, an alumni client who's at the same pizza place and, he remembers me and then like, I'm not even prompting him to necessarily share anything. And I walk inside and my dad's there and he's sharing with my dad, oh, your son got me back into surfing and in the ocean, in my addiction, I wasn't doing that stuff. And my dad shared that with me later. So yeah, those are definitely those moments where it's like, okay, like even when I think I'm not making a difference, things are happening in people's lives.
I love that. That's really important. And there's something I really want to touch on because I think that this is really important, especially, and it's something that I've heard a lot. And it's that, a lot of people, especially now there's a lot of addictions becoming more apparent. And maybe your kids are going to rehab or your loved ones or something like that. And they're doing things like surf therapy and they're doing things like going to the movies. Well, not now, but going to the movies. But I just want to, there's a huge importance to being able to have fun when you're sober too. And a lot of families don't understand that that's part of it. Like that's part of recovery, is learning how to do these things and having fun again without substances. And I'm just curious, like, because I know you hadn't been doing like really surfing a whole bunch when you got sober, but when did that come back into play for you?
So as far as like surfing coming back into my life, it was actually not till I was like a year and a half sober. I'd been living in the desert. That's where I got clean and sober, and found my way back out here to have a relationship with my daughter. And it was scary because I got sober at a young age. I was 18 and almost 19. And so like, not only did I have to make a shift of a new community, but make a shift into really becoming a young adult, which is like something I'd never done before. And so, a big part of going to the ocean was escape and having something to do. And it was definitely like a sanctuary for me. Is what I would say, where, if I didn't have that opportunity to like have that outlet, I don't know what would have happened in those first few years. Not saying that, surfing is, the whole foundation of life or of wellness, but it definitely was an outlet for me. So that's when it really came into play for me. And then, living in Orange County, it just kind of stuck because I've always lived, relatively close to the beach. At some points it was like, I lived in Rancho Santa Margarita. It's like a 35-minute ride to the beach, but I was like that dedicated, that it was like something that I enjoyed doing. So I would make the time to do it.
I love that. What else do you do that makes you feel, I don't know, more connected to yourself during the day?
So that's, changed a lot over the years, and sometimes just changes day to day. I like to look at it as like my own, wellness or spiritual toolkit, or, self-care, whatever you want to call that. But, sometimes it's waking up in the morning and doing prayer or meditation. And some days that makes me feel connected. Other days, not so much. Sometimes it's phone calls to other people and seeing how other people are doing, or, when you just kind of, all of a sudden you're around town and you run into somebody and, it's a good conversation. You get to catch up and you're like, wow, I forgot about that. Cause like, outside of the whole social media algorithm, it's like you forget people exist when you don't see them for so long. And you're like, wow, okay, cool. Like, so I think doing a lot of that on a daily basis and looking for the opportunities to be, grateful for my interactions with other people and friends, is definitely another way that I go to, feel connected and feel grounded. And then, of course, I'm always outdoors. If
Yes.
I'm not at the beach, I like camping or hiking. Sometimes just, going for a hike somewhere is just a good way to clear my head, because it's not always, life can't always be about being in the ocean 24/7. You got to work with what's around you sometimes. So,
Well, I think that that's a really important thing to mention too, because, and this is something I'm probably going to be on repeat about on multiple shows, but when COVID hit and the pandemic and everything closed down, everything shut down. And, I was working as a personal trainer full time. Well, not anymore because, the gym closed. So it's kind of like I kept hearing these things of, yeah, well, I can't work out because the gym's closed, or I can't, this because that's closed. And I just kept thinking to myself, well, you can look at it like that, or you can find a different way and work with what you have. So I love that, you can still find your connection and your serenity, even if it isn't necessarily in the water. Maybe it is hiking in the mountains. Maybe it is camping. So I think that that's really important that, people realize that, waiting for something to go back or be different or change somehow so that you can be how you were before, it's kind of like you're waiting for your life, and life is what's happening right now. So, why not enjoy yourself as much as possible? So I'm curious, because you've been doing Serene Waters for not quite a while, but a while now. I'm kind of curious, do you see a sort of typical breakthrough that people have, or limitation that they're able to work past, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I do actually. And I think the best one, I'll share a recent story. There was a particular person. I can't remember where exactly she was from, but we were, out at the beach, and she was adamant about, I am not getting in the ocean. I'm not doing it, period. Of course, everyone's always afraid of sharks and what's in the ocean. And, it's just first and foremost, I think for anyone watching out there, it's important to remember, like, we drive every day on the freeway. If you went through the police scanner or all the 911 calls, and you looked at every single accident, you would be terrified of getting on the road. But we don't think about it. We just get on the road. People are texting, people are eating. I mean, it is crazy out there. And we just, we never think twice. So same thing. I try to promote that within the group, just pointing that out. You're more likely to probably die in a car accident than something bad happened to you out there. But that was definitely one of the big fears she had, and fear of water. And so what she did was, like, a lot of times you can rely on the power of the group, as a facilitator. It's not always about being the engine and getting people to do what you want. It's about just creating the atmosphere and giving them an invitation to participate, and just meeting them where they're at. And over time, she felt safe with some peers, and they encouraged her to get in the water. So by the end of day one, she was like, up to her knees in water, going up to her waist. And then the next week she wanted to get out there and try surfing. And so she went out there and did it. And then the third session we had, she was same thing, fully out in the water. And, we just were able to share at the end of our little session, because we always do that, where we give everyone an opportunity to share what they got out of the experience. And that was, one thing that she said of, like, wow, I just feel so empowered that, like, by kind of giving into this thing and walking through the fear, how empowering the ocean is. So that is definitely just one example I could give of many.
Well, I love that too, because, there's something that I always say when I'm working with my clients, and that is that because I always want to create a physical goal to match a life goal. So if somebody said, let's say they're making $38,000 a year and they want to jump to $100,000 a year, that's a huge jump. So let's come up with a huge physical goal to match that, or to coincide with it. And the reason why is because our physical limitations typically represent our mental limitations, our mental blocks. So in order to create something new, you really have to step outside of that. And I love that you're able to, it might just seem like just surfing to some people, but it's not. There's so much more to it than that. The opportunities that you're creating for people to work through their own fears, just trusting life and connecting with nature again. What else because obviously there's a ton of different benefits. I know for me, like, I get my best ideas when I'm in the water. So what else have you noticed for yourself, or maybe other people?
So when I'm working with other people, I'll speak to that. And then I also have an example too I'd like to share. As far as relating things to, physical goals and kind of running the experience, along with what's going on in someone's life. Like, a lot of times, it's mostly a guy thing. I work with all ages, men and women, teens, adults. It's mostly a young guy thing where they don't want to ask for help, and so sometimes too, as a facilitator, I have to sit back, and when I'm offering them help, and hey, yeah, I got this, sometimes I have to let them have that experience where they're not asking for help, and then they go out there and they're getting slammed around and they're not doing it and they're getting frustrated, and then where they have that breakthrough where, they are open to some feedback, or they start asking for some help. So I will relate that a lot to, like, what's going on in their life, where they're kind of showing you a glimpse of, hey, I got this. I don't need any help. And the truth is I don't know anybody that has it. We all need people, it takes a village, to get through this life. And I think that's what the symbolism of that is asking for help and being able to admit when we don't know something, or when we haven't done something, and have someone show you that. So that's definitely something else I see, and will sometimes point out if the person is there yet. And sometimes they're just not there. They might not ever get to that point where they're willing to accept feedback or ask for help. But sometimes when they are, or they point out that in their own observation, we'll have that conversation. And then the other thing is, for myself, and I don't know what goes on entirely with everybody, but a lot of times surfing for me is just like a way to, just kind of tune out. And sometimes when I have things so close to me and I have all these plans and ideas and things I need to do, and I think that like hunkering down and trying to get all this work done is going to just make it happen. And it's like the opposite. It's kind of like you have to surrender to win or let go and let it happen. And so sometimes when I just go surfing or go do my own thing where I'm being mindful and getting exercise or getting outdoors, the answers sometimes come to me, maybe not right then. And sometimes it's as simple as just getting away from that stress and that focus and just letting go and clearing the mind and then coming back to it and going, oh, I don't know why I was so bent out of shape about this or so knotted up about it. This is a little bit easier than I'm making it out to be. So that's just one example for me.
I love it. And it makes me think of the fly, the fly just hitting the window, trying to get out. And like the heart, it keeps, pushing on the window, trying to get out. It uses up all its energy and it ends up dying when all I had to do is go boop. And there's the door right there to get around. So to me, I hear surfing or nature or, whatever that is for you. I mean, it doesn't even have to necessarily be physical, but something that gets you to be present to your, where you are instead of in your head, then you can relax and create and see things differently. So I love that, you point that out. So I do want to touch on before I forget, because I feel like this is a good time to mention this, is that you don't only work with addiction centers, you also do other kinds of surf lessons. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. I do a couple different things. The main thing is we do provide, experiential therapy services for drug and alcohol treatment centers. That's the official term for what we're doing. But I also do work with people individually on, surfing and mindfulness. So if maybe they're leaving a treatment center or they just want to sign up and have a one-on-one, I'll continue to work with them. And then I also do offer individual private surf lessons and group lessons. And I do have, a few instructors, have had a few instructors over, when we're in peak season. This summer was actually pretty busy for us. So, it's a great way to just, even if you're not having mental health issues or not having, drug and alcohol problems, just to, have a new experience and to, add one more thing to, your hobbies and also your physical health.
Well, that's a good point too, because you don't have to wait until you're broken to get fixed, why not have another tool in your tool belt where, for me, it used to be TV was the thing that helped me, but the more that I've grown spiritually and mentally, I just find it kind of a waste of my time. And so then I had to refine different things. And it's like, if I just been trying different things out, then I wouldn't be in crisis and I would have like these other things I could try. And, not everything always works, like one day it might work, the next day it might not. That's something else that I think people should be aware of, that there's not just one way. I had a guest on last week that was talking about how she doesn't meditate, but she does in her own way. I mean, the end product is the same thing, which is the peacefulness in her mind, the presentness that she, was trying to achieve, everything like that. So I'm curious, and now this is a little bit off the topic, but for some reason it just popped into my head. Has there ever been any, because you mentioned this before, but has there ever been any sharks in the water when you've been out there with clients or anything like that?
Not specifically when I've been out with clients. There was a season a few years ago that was pretty busy. There were a lot of shark sightings, and a lot of times, they'll just post it on the beach, shark sighted at this time. So
what do you do? Because you want to be safe. You never know. You never know if there's going to be one. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, well, I do remember one time in particular where it was that summer where, there was a shark attack in the area and there was a lot of sightings. So there was a period of time where we were having to, scale it back and do some hiking, try some other beach towns that weren't having the same, frequent sightings, things like that. And eventually it just, kind of calmed down. Everything kind of ebbs and flows. So, but I think that was 2017. So
I think what I'm trying to ask is, let's just say you happen to be out in the water and you see a shark. Is there anything you can do to try and keep yourself safer, or just keep surfing?
Well, okay, the politically correct answer would be, yeah, you should get out of the water. But I've been in the water by myself and seen a shark, and I did get a little bit scared. I've never wanted to jump on another man's surfboard until that moment where I was like, "Whoa, God, get me out of here!"
Oh, that's funny.
And it was funny. Out of all these years of surfing, I'm surprised, knock on wood, that that was my first encounter of what I thought was a shark. I could tell by the tip of the fin, because dolphins will typically they have one fin like this, and then the tail is flat. So you will see one fin, and it moves around. It's kind of like very wavy and playful, and they have air that they come up, they let out air from their blowhole. Whereas shark, you will see more of a swift, fast movement, circling. And so I did, see that. And once someone else noticed too, and I noticed nobody was really scared, I just kept surfing. I was like, well, there's 20 other guys out here, so I'll just go paddle to the middle of the pack. And now my odds just went down. But for my beginners, I would say, the best thing to do is just, of course, get out of the water.
Well, yeah. I guess the reason why I was asking that is because I'm still going to hike and I'm still going to see rattlesnakes. So, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I don't feel like just because there's a possible danger that I need to stop. Like you mentioned about driving down the freeway, the odds of me getting hurt in a car accident are way higher than like a rattlesnake incident, for example. So I want people to understand, that that's just another one of those things that our brain plays tricks on us about, that we feel like, we have to not do or give up on. I mean, obviously, be safe. Like if there's shark sightings and there's signs posted, maybe that's not the best day to go out in the water, or go somewhere else. But I just want people to know that even if that does happen, that it doesn't mean that they're going to get attacked, is what I'm getting at.
Right. And that year too, it rained quite a bit. I remember, if I'm thinking of the same year, and we went to the Ocean Institute, because sometimes we just have to find other things to do with the groups. And, that was one of the questions that came up for our tour guide there. And she said, literally, like dying of a shark attack, I think she said about the same odds as a vending machine falling on you and killing you.
Oh, wow.
So not very high, you know what I mean? So it doesn't happen very often. And, it is true, especially with, people that I'm working with. I try to have them look at like, what are other unhealthy risks they've taken in their life without a care, really, jeopardizing themselves and accepting themselves to feel good, running off with, anybody they find, and, taking substances or drinks that they have no clue what's in them. Versus, like you said, doing something where you're going on a hike and there's danger for a rattlesnake, or maybe there's danger for a shark sighting or some type of thing. But at the end of the day, you got to weigh out the cost analysis benefit of, my mental health versus living in fear.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, for me, when I first got sober, one of the reasons why I got sober was because, and not everybody knows that I had a drinking problem, but now you do. Anyway, one of the things is I remember I was sitting on a futon of all things, and in our TV room, my boyfriend at the time. And I just remember sitting on the edge of the futon, looking around this tiny little room and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to even get off this futon. My life has become so small. And, it's not like the outside world has changed at all. It's not, none of that. It was just my perception. So, facing fears and things like that are a way to definitely grow as a person as well. So I just love the fact that, things come up, but you can still move forward.
That's right.
All right. Well, now's probably a good time for a commercial break. So, James, we will see you shortly. All right. Hang tight. So I'm so glad that James is here with us today. He, like I said, he's one of my favorite people. And, I definitely want to talk to him a little bit more about family and things like that, because that's also super important to him. And I know that he has some really fantastic insights. But until then, we're going to go see some commercials. So hang.
3, 2, 1, 0.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, that was quick and painless. Yay! We are back again, and I'm going to bring James back out to have finish our chat. There he is. Hey, James, welcome back. So thanks again for being here. And I know you could hear me because you're part of the show. I definitely wanted to touch on family. And, you know, I knew you were school when you met your girlfriend, how much that relationship has grown. And I'm just curious to know what kind of advice you would give to other people that, you know, don't necessarily, you know, they want to build relationships in their life.
All right. So, yeah, no, thank you for asking that question. And as far as like, you know, people that want to build relationships in their life, you know, I hate it because when you're wanting to build a relationship with someone and you're looking and you're like, why isn't it just happening? And people are like, oh, the right one will come along. Like, I hated that saying. And that was just very much, you know, my experience. But before I go on any further, though, are we talking about specific to dating and romantic relationships, or just friendships and other healthy relationships?
You know, it doesn't have to be dating. It can be healthy, because especially now, I mean, either way, it's the same sort of dynamic. It just depends on whether you're romantically involved or not. So let's just open up whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, sure. Well, since I started off, I'll just finish with that. And also I want to talk about, you know, building, you know, also non-romantic relationships, because I know when it comes to, you know, health and wellness, like having a support network is important. You know, having friends, having people that you can do stuff with, that is a huge deal. But you know, I remember too, as far as like, you know, meeting my girlfriend, you know, I guess perception is everything, because a funny thing, you know, we kind of met at this conference, and you know, she was sitting a few rows in front of me, and I thought she was looking back at me. In my head, I was like, yeah, she's checking me out. And that's what gave me the confidence to go ask her for her phone number later and talk to her. And it was funny. I told her that after we'd been dating. I was like, yeah, you were totally, you know, checking me out. She's like, no, I was not. I was not looking at you. It was hilarious. And that misperception, you know, how that gave me that inspiration, or that courage, I should say, to go up and talk to her. But you know, that's been a really good, you know, relationship, and you know, very well, for me, I'm a young guy. Long term for me, I think we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary this spring. So that's been a blessing, and that's been amazing. And just like anything else, just like a friendship, you have to be able to do stuff together and enjoy each other's company, and that was definitely our experience. We had a lot of similar interests, and that kept it interesting as well. But also, as far as friends and building relationships, because like I said, that's been such a key factor in my life for just maintaining balance. Because I think that's the key as well, because not just relying on physical wellness, but also needing to sharpen, your mental wellness, your emotional wellness, and other people do that, whether you are, getting something from that interaction or bringing something to it, is usually what we're looking for. And, as humans, I think inherently we, of course we want to serve ourselves, but a lot of stuff has come from also, bringing stuff to relationships and not just showing up and let me get what I need and take off. But trying to, give and take, and put energy in, I think that's what makes healthy relationships and friendships. And I can't speak enough about, doing stuff together, whether that is, the physical wellness of, getting outside or, taking trips together, doing adventures. I think some of my best friends, best bonds that I've created with some of my guy friends is like us going on a men's retreat to Joshua Tree, where there's no cell service and you're just outdoors. And to some people, it's like, man, this guy's telling me to go out with a bunch of other guys to some camp out with no cell service, no computers. What is that? That's on the surface. It sounds horrible, but I mean, that's really, where, my relationships flourish, of like having a lot of those, things in society that are constantly inundating us, removed from us, and just kind of sitting around the campfire or, under the stars or going out, piling in the back of someone's truck and going on a hike or something. That's where bonds were built, with a shared experience. So if there's anything I could share with someone who's maybe struggling with that area of their life, and I don't just mean with romance, I just mean with friends, I would, urge you to, try meetups, try joining Facebook groups, whatever it is, even if it's not something like a bike ride or a hike or surfing, maybe your thing is cars or whatever, there's all kinds of meetups and groups. And I think being able to have shared experiences with people is where you can really grow your relationships. At least it helps break down the barriers, behind that, it doesn't put as much pressure on you for social interaction.
Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to say hello to Sherry McQueen. She is a very dear person in my life, and she wanted to say hello. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge her, as well as the other folks who have joined us live today and have left us messages as well. So I just wanted to say thank you. I hadn't done that yet, and I felt kind of like a meanie pants. So definitely wanted to say hello back. Sorry, I didn't mean to totally distract, but anyway, back to what you were saying about building relationships. It's funny because, one of my things is there's more to wellness than broccoli and burpees. And there really is. There is that component of being connected. We're tribe people. We're not meant to live on an island by ourselves and talk to Wilson or, our volleyball or whatever. So, that is important. And something that I wanted to touch on too, that I went through is as I was growing as a person, I had some friends in my life that, while they're fantastic people, we just didn't really have anything in common anymore. And I never cut anyone out of my life per se, unless they were just unhealthy for me. But, I had to sort of let those friendships, let them go in order to make room for new ones to just come. And I couldn't do that if I was filling up my time with people that I didn't necessarily want to spend as much time with. So, I think that that's important too, because I know a lot of people, and especially lately, have discovered that maybe their relationships aren't what they thought they were, or maybe their friendships aren't what they thought they were, because when you're spending time with people and you can't do things that you normally did, like go out into the, drink or to dance or to the movies or anything that, keeps you busy, So now you're really focused on this other person. It's kind of like, oh, I guess we don't have that much in common. And then what do you do? So, kind of let go if you don't have anything in its place. Have you noticed that you, James, or anyone else? Because I know that coming from the industry that, well, I'm not really in the same industry anymore, but there's a lot of people that have to deal with that sort of situation where their friends aren't necessarily good for them anymore. What do you think about that?
Right. So sorry, we glitched out there for a second. Just so I'm understanding the question, you're talking about what do people do kind of when their social scene needs to change based on their own lifestyle changes, and maybe there's some people in there that just don't fit anymore. And what would I suggest to people going through that? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And I think, whether it's people, changing their own lifestyle through recovery or wanting to just, improve their mental health, or even just sometimes, everyone goes through stuff. You don't need to have mental health issues or problems with substances to just want to reinvent yourself. So I guess sometimes too, like, really looking at like almost taking a life inventory, I guess, or like a social inventory of like, those old sayings that, you hear that you don't really like, but they kind of fit when you look back as like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I believe that, if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are just, going nowhere and they want to just kind of blame everybody else outside of them for why they're not, getting what they want in life. And it's just about kind of sitting around and chilling. You're probably going to be a product of that environment if you continue to hang out in that area. And same thing, like, I feel like a lot of people that I surround myself with that are, in my age group that I would call friends are other guys who are having, they're married, they're having kids, they're getting careers. They're doing those things. They're going after what they want in life, whatever their dream is. So I would just suggest maybe to like evaluate like what your own kind of vision for your life is. And are you surrounding yourself with people like that? And, you've probably, if you are sick of being around certain people, you've probably already identified it. If you're constantly angry, short-tempered, avoid them. Those are like key indicators that, those relationships aren't really giving to you. So, I would definitely suggest, just being able to kind of roll with that and accept it. And, I think sometimes, social relationships can be kind of like a Rubik's Cube, where it's like over time, sometimes you're hitting and you're aligned and other times you're not, and just kind of going with the flow of that. And, just trying to keep finding like your tribe or whatever it is that you stand for and what you want in your life, because, people change over time and interests change. And, even when there's good, healthy people, sometimes people just go one direction and other people go other directions, and not necessarily in a bad way. Just sometimes that happens. So I'm not quite sure if I answered your question.
Oh, you did. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that was perfect. And I love the Rubik's Cube description because it's so true. Because I'm a super visual person. So I love it when people can explain things to me where I can actually not physically see it, but mentally see it. Physically is good too, but at least mentally. So that's a good representation, because now it gets into those deeper layers where it's not just surface. Oh yeah, I understand. I know, this show isn't necessarily about AA or anything like that, but one of their sayings is, like go and let God, or one day at a time. There's a few of them, and those things used to drive me bananas, but they're sayings for a reason and they make sense. And if we could just sort of let go and sort of be in the flow of things and stop trying to force the Rubik's Cube, as you mentioned, then, life can be a lot more pleasant if you're not trying to recreate or make things go a certain way just because that's what you've decided it should be. So I really like that. I love that description because, it's not necessarily simple, but you don't have to make it mean something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm curious because we're starting to run a little bit low on time, and I want to make sure that we talk about something else important, dear to and near to my heart, is if somebody what are some signs that people can look for if they're concerned about a loved one that might have some sort of an issue with substance abuse? What kind of things? Because I was recently talking, and the reason why I'm asking this is because I had a conversation with somebody that's really important to me yesterday. And we were talking about should they be concerned or not about this person in their life. And maybe it's nothing, maybe it is. And is it too soon to say something? Or, what are your thoughts on talking to a possible addict in your life?
Yeah. So as far as, talking to people, I think I heard you mention also looking for certain signs. So I'll start with the signs. I think a lot of the obvious indicators are, kind of what we just talked about, social issues going on. Like, who is this person spending time with? Are they hanging around people? Are they constantly isolated and alone? Are they disappearing for long periods of time and you don't know where they are? Are they following through on their commitment? Every relationship is give and take and two-way street, even with whether it's parents, siblings, relatives, friends, are these people showing up to like the family dinners, or the friend, reunions or whatever it is? Are they staying in touch? Not just through text or social media, but like face to face. I think that is the biggest indicator. Like, the face just doesn't lie. So I think if you're going long periods of, not seeing someone and they're constantly unaccountable and flaking out, and that's like really abnormal for them from what they used to be like, I would say that's an obvious indicator that something is up, whether they're using substances or their mental health is on the decline, which could be why they're isolating or doing other things to try to manage that. And as far as like talking to people about it, that's a tough one because there's so many different situations, so many different scenarios. It can be difficult. I think sometimes the best way I've noticed that talking to anybody about something that seems to be challenging seems to be in a one-on-one setting. Aside from like, not at the family reunion or at the dinner table, that may not be the best place to try to have that heart to heart or get information or express some concern. I've found that sometimes having that conversation with people one-on-one, whatever it is, seems to go a lot farther. And that's just my experience as a counselor. When I'm trying to maybe promote a certain behavior or trying to help produce a certain outcome, in someone's life, a lot of times me attacking them on the group level doesn't seem to go well. So I would apply that principle to the same thing with our family and our friends of, maybe just like having that face-to-face conversation with them, whether that's over coffee, whether that's at the house. And again, if it's escalating beyond that, where like they're just not returning calls, not showing up, then it may be time to talk to like a professional interventionist and dig a little bit deeper into it. But, if you're able to at least get the person to meet face to face, again, I feel like, the eyes and the face kind of say it all. You can really tell where someone's at when you see them physically, because our aura is just projected outward. Whatever we got going on, in here and in here, a lot of times we'll project that. So, it doesn't take too much to see when someone's in bad shape.
Yeah, the aura doesn't lie. That's a very good point. I love the fact that you talk about, one-on-one and maybe not at the dinner table, maybe not at the family reunion, because if you're going to, and it's going to feel like a confrontation to the person that you're talking to. So more than likely, I can't speak for everyone, but, it's something that person is possibly feeling shame about. And I don't know about most people, but I know how I would feel. And that one-on-one makes it seem like you actually care, as opposed to trying to call that person out about some behavior or something along those lines. And they may be able to hear you and they may not, but at least you'll have more clarity for yourself as to whether or not maybe you can help in another way or be on standby or anything else. So my question too for you, James, is if you do have somebody in your life with a substance issue, what can you do for yourself? Because, it may be that person has an issue with drugs or alcohol, but they don't live by themselves alone. Even if they're not in your house, it's still affecting you. So how can you keep your own sanity?
Right. And just like my last response, it's going to vary so much depending on, who this person is. How close are you to them? Is this an adult child? Is this a spouse? Is this a sibling? Is this a friend? It's going to vary, in degrees on how impactful it is. I guess I would just say, in a general way, when it comes to, maybe dealing with independent adults, who maybe someone's struggling with substance use issues and they're not getting the memo, they're not getting the message. You've tried several conversations with them. What starts to develop is another addiction, and that's in the person that constantly wants to rescue them or save them, or done in the name of helping them. At some point we are trying to help friends and family members, and at other points we become the rescuer or the enabler, and we can't force help on people. And I think the best thing we can do if you're finding yourself in that situation is, set certain boundaries in your life. Like, it's okay to not need to check on this person. If you've offered help, you've expressed concern, you've opened the door. I think the most important thing is that we leave the door open for that relationship, but we don't want to, start being a detective or a nurse, or a 911 phone call. That's the biggest thing. And I would think just, going back to the same stuff that, we've talked about earlier in the show of like, what's your physical, mental, and spiritual health looking like? Those three things right there. Making sure you're taking care of those things and going back and investing in yourself and not making that person's addiction or that person's crisis, the top of the pyramid for you. You got to feed your own, physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. So that's what I would suggest.
I love that, and that's something, and it's so well said, James. I love exactly how you put that, because there is no right, wrong answer. There is no one way. And I'm going to share an example that happened with me that was not pleasant. Just so that people can understand that you just never know. And ultimately you have to do what makes you feel okay in the situation, because there's going to be people giving you advice, but you have to do it. Maybe you're somebody that still gives your kid money, even though they're probably using it for drugs. But if that's the only way you can be okay, who am I to judge? For me, my brother, he was drinking too much, and he was really sick, and I knew that if he kept drinking, he would die. So I said to him, I can't watch you kill yourself. I can't talk to you unless you stop drinking. And he ended up passing away like a week later from drinking. So, that to me is like a horrifyingly sad example of something. However, I would not change it, because I did the best I could with the situation that I was given. And that's all anybody can ask for. Do I wish it was different? Probably, but me suffering longer wasn't going to make his situation any different. I didn't cause his death. So, it was going to happen or it wasn't. And so, my thing is, yeah, it didn't turn out well, but it wasn't going to turn out well anyway. So, it's kind of like, you just got to do what you're going to be okay with at the end of the day, ultimately. So any further thoughts on that, James, or anything you want to like bring up the mood a little since I brought it down?
Yeah, no, big, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I'm sure other people watching the show that didn't know that, are probably really like, wow, I didn't know that. That's what I thought. I've known you for a while. I didn't know that was a part of your story. And wow, what a heartbreaking way to, lose a sibling.
Yeah.
But to kind of go back to a few closing comments on that. And, it's hard. Like you said, I wouldn't change a thing about it because it wasn't going to end well either way. And I think that's the hardest part. Is that, parents, I think that's the hardest dynamic I see is the, young adult child and the parents and the addiction going on there and the, enmeshment there. And always that fear of, what if he dies? What if he dies? What if he dies? Well, at least if they're, doing heroin in my house, at least I know that they're alive, or I know where they are. And it becomes a way of, them soothing themselves, and it becomes a living hell, and then all of a sudden it's like, they're just as angry and resentful and worried and scared as if they didn't know where the person was. So, I think that at some point, I think the movie that shows it best is Beautiful Boy, where at the end, the dad had to get to that point where he's like, okay, my son is an addict and I've done everything I can to help him. And, this is where he's at with his disease, and I can't save him. I can't change him. And on the surface, it sounds really callous, but in that point of the movie, you can see how free the dad became and how it showed him focusing on his relationship. I think he had another son in the house, a younger son, and, he had another wife who he started a family with. So that's what I would suggest. I mean, as hard as that sounds, and it is, it's true. It's not going to end well, regardless of whether you're in there meddling with it and trying to puppeteer with it. So, you might as well start putting that energy into other areas of your life that you can help, and just be available. I think that's the key word, is not turn our back or shut people out, but we're available.
I love that. That's well said. James, I've been popping up on the screen a bunch of different ways to get a hold of you. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention as like the best way, maybe?
Yes, the best way to get a hold of me is to just text me. That phone number that showed up there, it's 949-464-7123. That is the most direct way to get a hold of me. Of just, tell me, what your name is, and maybe what the call is about, or why you're reaching out to me. It goes directly to my phone. Email is still good, but depending on what's going on, it might be a couple hours before I check an email. But most of the time, if I'm not in the water, a text will notify me. So that's the most direct way to get a hold of me.
I love it. Well, James, thank you so much for being here today. As always, it's good to see you. And I'm glad we got a little chance to hang out, even if it is online.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, thank you again, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Thank you. It was a pleasure to see you, Julianne.
All right. That was such a fun conversation. I love him so much. He's got such great energy and is a good friend of mine. And I guess, that's kind of the end of our show. So until next time, actually Thursday to be precise, at 4 p.m. PST, you can reach us online or on all the other options like Roku, for example. Thanks again for watching.